Hello boys and girls. Today we are looking at the 35mm 1.4, a great budget option by Nikon. Oh, and here it is right here. You have a autofocus wheel, you also have a control wheel, you get a lens hood, you get a lens cap, which you will obviously lose, and of course we have a metal mount on the back and Nikon's deliciously big Z mount. Click! This is what it looks like on the Nikon ZF. I have a grip on the Nikon ZF. Here it is on the Nikon Z8, a little easier to hold this camera. And this is what it looks like on the Nikon Z6 III, so you can have an idea about that. Now the aperture on this lens opens up to 1.4. That's a lot wider than your typical kit lens, so this might be a good prime for you to start with. By the way, also, if this is a little big, if that looked a little too large on those cameras we just showed you, you might consider the 40mm f2 lens, which by the way has a plastic mount. It's not metal. And yeah, this is like a good walk around prime lens to start out with. So this is a good option as well. And I'm going to throw in a surprise, the 50, just give you more choices here, the 50mm 1.4. Hooah! So if you notice, they look identical. And so now it makes your choices harder. The 35mm 1.4, the 50mm 1.4. But what's great about these lenses is these are awesome budget options from Nikon. It's so nice to see a company give, different tiers so that if someone wants to get their first prime, this might be a good option. By the way, a big thank you to Nikon USA for sending these over for a couple of weeks to play with. I have to send them back now, but it was pretty fun to try these out so that I can share with my audience what it was like to shoot with them. So thanks, Nikon USA. Now here's the 50mm 1.8 lens, and this actually comes at a little bit of a higher price point because it's in Nikon's S line. There's a little bit more coatings, there's a little bit more supremeness, superness. But anyway, here the 50mm has an autofocus manual focus switch. The 1.4 does not. But what's interesting is the 50mm 1.4 and the 35mm 1.4 have a control ring, which allows you to set aperture or ISO to, you can set this to whatever you want. And the 50mm 1.8 does not. By the way, sometimes you do find this lens either refurbished or on sale at a lower price than this one. Let's look at some pictures. Hi, 50mm. It's filming me right now. 1.4. The camera is just so far. I never record with 50, and it's like, guys, I like to have the camera. I like to have you close to me. All right, let's take a little winter walk around New York. So my wife and I came out of the subway and I just took this picture of her with these food carts are everywhere, by the way, in New York. But this is the 35mm and you can see how much separation you get in the background. And you can notice here on the highlight, you do get a little purple fringing. Coming out of the subway, you could see the purple fringing. Now this is something that's easily correctable by most photo softwares, so it's not a big problem, but it's just something you should be aware of. This shot was a miracle. This is looking down 34th Street here, and this just gives you an idea of the separation you can kind of get. I just focused on these first few people here. This is not an award-winning shot. This is just to show you what you can see down, the distance-wise. Again, the 35 here, focusing on these stockings, you can see that it's, plenty sharp. In the middle, if you zoom in, you could see detail on all the little stuffy stuffs there. And just like most lenses in the corner at 1.4, it's a little weaker than the center. But if you do stop down these lenses to just right away, like 2.8, f4, they're sharp across the whole frame. Here is near Bryant Park, again, the 35. And yeah, it just has a nice sort of Bocalicious vintage feel. Here we have a little street ad, and I was waiting for something interesting to come through to kind of, be weird or interesting. But I just waited long and too long and nothing ever happened. This is the 35mm shooting across the street. The lighting isn't great here, but you can kind of see from across a New York City street, how much information, how much you can get in the frame. These are little pop-up shops that open up during the holidays. And then in the background, you can see the windows are nice and sharp. Now, although I only had only 24 megapixels, you can see this interesting character on the bicycle. Here's the frame I got that I edited with my preset. And also, this is the original. So you can see you can crop into the image and still get plenty of detail. He was so interesting, this character. I had to grab him. So I'm coming down the street. I was like, God, 35 millimeter here just to show off the dynamic range of the Nikon Z6 III. I exposed for the sky in the background and then just pulled out all the shadow detail here, a picture of my wife looking. And here is kind of the same location at 50 millimeters. I like shooting full body portraits at 50 millimeters if the background has like some kind of interest. And that pretty much works with these lenses with this 50 millimeter as well. Obligatory Christmas tree bokeh shot. So you can see that you get round bokeh balls here in the center. And then if you move up, you get like little football shaped dudes. Oh my God, look at those beautiful gold bokeh-licious balls. And I focused on this little flower in the front. But you can see that, it has a nice kind of, with this lighting coming in, has a nice cool look to it. This is an old cab in New York, and you can rent these. This was a rental for like a photo shoot for a wedding or something. But again, look at that grill. Beautiful, sharp, lovely. One thing I did notice is sometimes the bokeh has like a bubbly, distracty kind of vintage lens look. And that might just be a matter of taste. I usually like a little smoother bokeh than that, but you will notice that in some of the images. Now, this gentleman was interesting. He was completely screaming like 2 seconds before this, and I missed that shot. I'm so mad, but I still got him fuming. And this is a crop as well, shot with the 35 millimeter. And I wish I was a little closer, but it still works. We love visiting these, the Radio City Music Hall, balls, as we call them. But look at the color. Lovely. Anything red is always amazing. This woman was leaning on a car and not really noticing me. And again, this was a crop. We were crossing the street. I just had to grab the camera and take a quick shot. So we got, but anyway, the look is great. I give it a little bit of a filmic curve. And this woman walking in front of the hot dog cart. I love including carts, and they're such a big part of New York now, these food carts. But the lighting here was fantastic. And I wish that the other woman wasn't there. Would have made it a little more interesting. But just going by light here. And by the way, we should mention that most people are going to... what they're going to notice about your photograph first is the lighting, composition, and colors before like how blurry your background is and how sharp it is. So think about that too when you're trying to decide on a lens. Is a lot of times the moment and the lighting and the colors are much more important. All right, so what do I recommend? Well, I still am a fan of the 40mm f2. It has character. It's also, the size is just great on all the cameras. So this kind of is always my top choice, especially it's cheaper than all of these. So if you're getting your first prime, I recommend the 40mm f2. Or if you want something a little wider, Nikon makes a 28. Then I would say my second recommendation would be the 50mm 1.8 if you can get it on sale or refurbished. This is just an amazingly sharp lens. It is as sharp as the 24-70 2.8 lens at 1.8. So this guy is just super clear, crystal, deliciously wonderful. The one hang up is the 1.8 if you need a little bit more light, or more importantly, if you want to blur out your backgrounds on full length portraits, then I would say the 50mm 1.4 may be a little bit more fun to play with. But if you're on a budget, then I would recommend the 50mm or the 35mm 1.4 lenses. Great that it's a budget option. Great that it's 1.4. You kind of have to be a fan of the little bubble bokeh, sort of busy background bokeh with these two lenses. Also, I appreciate the minimalistic design. I think it's beautiful, but it would be great for a line of lenses to be released like Nikon's old film lenses that have the aperture ring and just have a distance scale on them. and maybe fit in better with the ZF system. I would love to see that. All right, anyway, let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys next time. Yeah, great.